Hey everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I got a whole lot of subscribers from my last video where I did the Pat McGrath Foundation first impression and wear test. So if you're new here, again, welcome and thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be playing around with the Pat McGrath Foundation again because I cannot stop playing with this foundation. I usually don't wear a full face of makeup every day, and I haven't worn a full face every single day since I got this, but on most days, I think I've had this for maybe going on like a week or so now. On most days, I've been wearing this foundation because I just love it so much. Like even when I go to work, I never wear like a full face to work unless for whatever reason I'm doing a video before I go to work, like I did in the first impression video. Normally I don't do a full face, but I've even been wearing like more makeup to work over the past few days because I just love putting this foundation on my face. So if you haven't seen my first impression video, you should go back and watch that one first and then come back and watch this, because in the first impression video you could clearly tell that this shade of the foundation is too dark for me. So this is the shade 28. It's a shade that I can make work, but it's too dark for me. I started thinking that maybe I needed shade 25, but now I'm thinking I need something even lighter because I've been looking at other videos and just based on what I've been seeing around, I feel like I may even need shade 20. I'm not sure, but 28 is definitely too dark for me. But as I've been wearing it the past few days, I've been able to like kind of tweak my routine just a little bit so that I can make it blend in better with my skin. And you'll notice in that first video that I did a mini wear test, and after about 4 or 5 hours, the foundation, my skin started to oil up, which it normally does. So I'm gonna also tweak my routine a little bit today to help make the foundation last a little longer. I want to say it was on Sunday. It was on Sunday I wore this foundation and it held up on my face for like a good 10 hours before I started to get shiny. So I thought that was really good. So the way that I did my foundation on that day, that's what I'm going to show you today. And of course, I'm just going to show y'all how I came up with today's look. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so I usually don't wear foundation primer, but whenever I want my makeup to last a little bit longer than usual, I will do the powder before foundation technique, especially when I'm wearing like a full face of makeup and it's like really hot and really humid outside. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be starting off with my Maybelline Fit Me powder in the color 15 Light. Normally when I do powder before foundation, I would mix this powder with this ColourPop powder. So let me show y'all. Let me see if I can show y'all the shades of these two powders. I usually mix them together so that they're more closer to my skin tone, but I'm gonna stick just with the Maybelline powder for today because I already know that the foundation that I'm gonna be using is darker than my skin tone. So I'm gonna go in with a dry makeup sponge. This is the Sonia Kashuk sponge, and I'm going to dip the sponge into the powder, and I'm going to concentrate this in the areas where I get oily. So for me, that's definitely like on my nose, the sides of my nose, and on my forehead. And I'm putting a good amount of powder in these areas just to help keep my face matte. I'm also going to take a little more of this powder and also put it on my brows because my brow area gets really oily too. So that kind of like serves as a primer for my brows. All right, so you should be able to tell that this powder on its own is a little bit lighter. Normally when I set my foundation with this powder, it does tend to get translucent, but it's coming off a little lighter because of the way that I applied it. I just packed it on with a sponge instead of just almost like dusting it on with a brush. So now we're gonna go into the Pat McGrath Foundation. And again, I am in the shade 28. And in my first video, I kept saying that I feel like I need 25. I'm actually starting to think that I need shade 20, but I'm definitely going to have to go to the store and see. In my first impression video, I didn't even shake this foundation up. That's what I'm doing now. I always shake up new foundations just to get like all of the ingredients, you know, working together, I guess. I didn't even do that the first time. I guess I was just so excited. So I'm going to start with... This foundation is quite liquidy, so you do have to be kind of careful when you're pumping it out. I like putting the foundation like right on my face, or I guess on my finger first and then on my face. I don't like dipping like a sponge or a brush like into foundation. So in my last video, I put the foundation on. I blended it out with this brush. This is the Can't Stop Won't Stop foundation brush. I'm actually going to go in with my NYX number 3 brush, this is actually my favorite foundation brush. I chose the other brush in the last video because the foundation is kind of liquidy. Actually, it's very liquidy. So I just figured using a dense brush would help with the coverage. But since then, I've been blending this out with this brush, and I actually like this better. I think that this helps it like gel into my skin a little bit better. So I always start my foundation on my cheek area, and then I'll go in on my nose and on my forehead, and then I'm just bringing it down to my neck. And I'm gonna show y'all like how I'm gonna like blend it out a little bit better on the neck, because you can really tell on my neck that the foundation is too dark for me. I'm going to go in with a little bit more coverage. And I'm not putting a whole lot on my under eye area. I never put a lot of foundation on my under eye area. I feel like most people don't, because you're going to, you know, put concealer there anyway. All right, and then I'm just going to quickly do the other side. I feel like I put a little more on this side, so I'm gonna go back over here and see if I can even it out a little bit. Okay, so if you compare my face to my neck, you can see that it's definitely darker. So moving on to concealer, I feel like the first time that I wore this in my first impression video, I didn't put on enough concealer to balance everything out. So I'm going to be using the Too Faced Born This Way multi-use sculpting concealer, and I'm going to first apply it to the under eye area. But I'm gonna let it sit there for a minute. And then I'm gonna do, while this is sitting, I'm gonna do my brows off camera. I'm using the LA Girl Shady Slim brow pencil, and I use the shade Brunette. So I'm gonna do this off camera and I'll be back. Then we'll blend out the concealer and then add some concealer in other places. Okay, I never like how my brows come out, and today is no exception, but they're done. So now we're gonna go and blend out my under eye concealer, and I like to just stipple my under eye concealer like right in the area where I want the most coverage. I try my best to avoid my immediate under eye area, like right at the lash line, because I have a whole lot of like deep wrinkles and lines right there. But I'm trying to concentrate the concealer where I want the most coverage. And then I'm going to take the residual that's on the brush and kind of like drag it down like closer to where my nose stops. And then I'm gonna go in with a little bit more on the under eye, and I'm also gonna put concealer on my chin and on my forehead, and even a little bit down the center of my nose. I normally don't put concealer right in the center of my face. I usually just take like the residual that's on the brush and put concealer in those areas. But for this foundation, I need a little bit more concealer to help balance out you know, this foundation being too dark for me. So on my under eye area, I am putting a good amount of concealer right here because I want coverage in this area. But my forehead, nose, and chin, I'm not putting a lot right there because I do want the concealer to brighten those areas, but I don't necessarily need more coverage right there. If somebody came out with a concealer called Spackle, I would be all on it because that's what I need for my under eyes. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the same brush, blend out on my chin area, my forehead. This is the area where I always feel like I never blend it out enough, which is why over time I've stopped putting concealer there and just using residual product. But I'm just making sure it's really blended. And then I usually don't put concealer down the center of my nose because I'm going to go over that area with a highlighter, and I just feel like the highlighter is all I need to brighten that area. I don't necessarily need the concealer too. Okay, so next we're going to set my makeup, and I'm using that same powder, the Maybelline Fit Me Powder in Light. I'm going to take the same sponge that I used to apply the powder underneath my foundation, but now it's damp, and I'm going to dip my damp sponge into the powder and lightly set my under eye area. And I have noticed there was a time where I just stopped setting my under eye area altogether because I felt like any little amount of powder that I put right here, it just dried my under eye area out too much. And then I noticed when I go in and I set it with a damp sponge, I guess, you know, the sponge being damp is adding a little bit of moisture to this area so it doesn't get quite as dry. Then I'm going to take my fluffy powder brush and I'm going to set, I'm using the same powder, but I'm going to use this brush to set the rest of my face. This is the, what is this called? This is called the It Brushes for Ulta number 211 brush. And I feel like this brush is like the perfect combination of like density and softness on your face. And this was a splurge product, but I feel like it's really worth it. Okay, even though I already set my face with powder, I think I'm gonna go in with my foundation and put a little bit, my concealer. I'm gonna put a little bit right on the corners of my mouth because I meant to do that before I set my face, but I forgot. So I'm gonna blend this out with a small brush. These areas on the sides of my mouth, they always look darker than the rest of my face, and I know it's normal for people to have like discoloration around their mouth area, but quite often I actually forget to like try to conceal these areas, and a lot of times this concealer ends up disappearing during the day anyway. I guess because I'm like wiping my mouth when I eat or something. But okay, so my base makeup is all set and ready to go. So now we're going to move on to eyeshadow. I'm going to be starting off with my MAC Paint Pot and Painterly, and that's what this looks like. I'm going to put this on my lid as a base. And I always like putting a very light colored concealer on my lid for shadows that I want to be like very vibrant on my face. And then toward the brow bone, I'm going to be using the LA Girl Pro Concealer in Cool Tan. And I always use two different concealers on my lid because whatever color shadow I'm putting here where I'm applying this concealer right now, I'm going to be applying more muted colors and colors that I just don't need to stand out as much as the ones on my lid. So I just like using a more skin tone concealer up here. I think it's easier to cover up this area up here if the concealer or the primer isn't so bright. Alright, for eyeshadow today, I'm using the Revlon Enigma palette. That's what this one looks like. I love this palette. I've used it quite a few times since I got it, but I just don't like how the pans are just so small. I think it's kind of hard to get shadow out without putting your brush into two colors at one time, but I really like how pigmented this is. So I'm going to be starting off on my lid, and I think I'm going to start with, like this shimmery rose gold shade here, that one, and I'm going to put that on the inner part of the lid. So this is what I'm talking about. This brush is actually wider than the actual pan, so I feel like it's harder to get the shadow out because of that, but oh well. All right, so I'm gonna start by putting this on my lid. Then I'm going to go in with this pink shade here, and I'm going to put that basically right next to the first color that I put on. I'm using the same brush. I'm just turning it over to the other side. And then I'm just going to pop this right next to that rose gold shade. And I'm also kind of overlapping the rose gold with this pink also. I'm going to go in with this dark purple shade down at the bottom. I'm going to use that just to darken up the whole look right on the corners of my lid. And I am switching over to a small blending brush. And I'm just patting that color on. I actually think I need a denser brush. All right, this is the brush from the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, and I'm gonna be using this side down here, and I'm dipping it right back into that purple, and I'm just tapping it on. Then I'm switching to the blender side of the brush. Before I pick up any additional shadow, I'm going to drag this over into the crease, soften it out just a little bit. Okay, next I'm picking up this, it looks kind of like a magenta shade almost, that matte shade there. I'm going to pick that up with the blender side of this brush. I'm really tapping off the excess. And I'm going to use this shade to like diffuse the whole look out up at the top and kind of blend all of those colors together, especially right here on the outer corner. I'm going to take some more of this matte purple shade, and I'm going on my lower lash line, but just on like the outer corner of it, and just patting that on right on the very outer corner. All right, so we'll finish up with the eyes a little bit later on. Now we're gonna move on to bronzer. I'm using the one that I use all the time, the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer in Endless Summer. And I'm gonna be applying that with, I think this is a highlighter brush. Yeah, this is a highlighter brush. I use it for bronzer. So I'm gonna start on my cheek area and just blend that right along, like right above the hollow part of my cheek. Then I'm gonna take the residual and run it right at the bottom of my jaw. And I'm actually gonna skip bronzer on my forehead. I did put bronzer on the forehead the first time I tried this foundation out, but again, this is too dark for me, so I'm going to skip it on the forehead. I'm just remembering that I never went back to my neck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm taking the concealer brush that I used, and I'm just going to really blend out right where the foundation is stopping along my neck. I feel like y'all can't really see it on camera, but I can see it in this mirror in front of me. It's just blending out a lot better down into my neck when I do this. Okay, so like I said, I'm not doing bronzer on my forehead today, so now we're moving on to blush. I'm using my everyday blush, the Note Cosmetics Luminous Silk Blush in the shade Desert Rose. And I'm pretty sure this is the same blush that I used when I did the first impression video on this foundation. I was thinking about using another blush today that I have been really liking lately. It's more of like a red tone blush, but I feel like this color will add like some contrast on my face today. And for highlighter, I'm actually going for a highlighter that I have not used in a very long time. This is the Flesh, I think it's just called highlighter. The Flesh highlighter and Flesh Beauty highlighter in the shade Promise. This is the packaging. And then this is what the highlighter looks like. It's like a really nice rose gold shade. And I feel like it'll tie in very nicely with my eyeshadow for today. So I just want the highlighter to just like subtly catch the light on the high points of my cheek. And then I'm also gonna run a little bit down the center of my nose. And then also on the brow bone. I don't know what I'm gonna do for my inner corner on my eyes. I was gonna do this, but I feel like instead I'm gonna go back into the CoverGirl palette. And this looks like a shimmery shade. So I think I'm gonna try this shade on my inner corner. I feel like the rose gold highlighter will be too similar to the shades that I have on my lids. Yeah, I think that's a nice contrast. And then when I do my inner corner, I typically like to blend it back up into whatever shade I have on my lid. Okay, I'm setting everything in place with the Rimmel Stay Matte Setting Spray. Okay, I already went ahead and put my eyeliner and mascara on. I'm wearing the NYX Matte Liquid Liner in black. This is the only one that I use every single time I do eyeshadow. And today I'm wearing the e.l.f. Plump It Up Mascara. Normally when I'm doing like a full face of makeup and I'm doing an eyeshadow look, I typically will use the Butter London Power Up Mascara. I usually wear this on more like special occasions, and the e.l.f. mascara is more so for like every day. But just to really like kind of change it up just a little bit, I decided to go in with the e.l.f. mascara today. I think the e.l.f. one is like almost like a dupe to that Butter London mascara. So that's what I'm wearing on my eyes. And I'm going to be going in with, I really can't decide between two lipsticks that I'm holding in my hand. But I think I'm going to go in with Burgundy Blush from Maybelline. So what this one looks like. I feel like I'm ready to start busting out fall makeup. So we're going to go in with this nice fall color here. Yeah, and I really like that. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put bronzer on my nose, even though it looks like my nose is already kind of defined, and I think it's because of the highlighter, but I'm not gonna pick up any more product. I'm gonna use what's still left on the brush. Just gonna lightly put some of this bronzer on my nose. I can't believe I forgot to do that. Then I'm gonna take actually I'm going to take my concealer brush. Usually I will go back in with whatever I applied my foundation with, and I will use that to soften up the bronzer a little bit. But again, I do have to kind of improvise because this foundation is darker than me. So I'm going to go in with the concealer brush instead, just because the concealer is lighter than the foundation. But I'll normally just pat right over the bronzer to soften it down and to not make it look so defined. I feel like I shouldn't have put bronzer on because now I just feel like my nose is just too defined. Okay, so I'm going to leave my hair pushed back so we can really see the face. So again, you can still see that it is darker, but you know, I feel like doing the makeup this way, I can really get some use out of this foundation because I haven't really decided. I kept saying in the first video that I was definitely going to get another shade, but I haven't decided because I keep telling myself I have a whole bottle of this that I can use. So I don't know if I'm gonna buy another shade or if I'm gonna just stick with this because I do really like this. I love it actually. Let me know what y'all think about my look today. I really hope that you like it, and I hope that you liked the video. If you did, let me know by giving me a thumbs up, and I hope to see y'all back for the next one. Until then, take care. Have a good one. Bye.